Future Generations. I'm honored having with me today on Nile TV International and the Egyptian television is Mrs. Joanna Masic, the Global Lead for Sustainable Cities at the World Bank. Thank you very much for being with us today, first of all. I would like to ask you about the initiative, the Egyptian Cities Initiative for Sustainability. What does this mean in terms?
So it's very important that Egypt is launching this initiative here today at COP27. It's the Egypt Sustainable Cities Initiative. We've been working with Egypt for many years on the big challenge of sustainable urban development, but we know that with growing climate change, we need to take a proactive approach to cities and how they develop. Cities contribute majority of the emissions, and they also are the centers of population, of GDP, and so they will be increasingly affected by climate shocks. So that's why it's important that the Sustainable Cities Initiative takes an extra effort at this critical time to adjust cities to this new reality.
Speaking about the role of the World Bank, not just for Egypt or the Middle East, as the COP27 is being held here in an African country or in the Middle East or an Arab country, the support lent by the World Bank for Africa in general, because it is the most affected by the negative impacts of the climate change. What is the support lent by the World Bank in the previous years, and what can be expected by the Africans in the future in this field?
So, I mean, as you say, it's a very big priority for the World Bank to focus our efforts on the African continent, and we see this initiative in Egypt actually having a big impact on developing approaches and lessons and ways that we can take to other cities across the whole continent. We've had here at COP a lot of discussions with African cities. We see a strong demand for support, particularly on adapting to climate change, increasing resilience, use of nature-based solutions. There's been a very big call from mayors across the African continent for more support on this topic from the international community.
We did see during the conference the sea level rising for the Egyptian cities. One of them is Alexandria, and we should be protecting such an historic city for Egypt and for the whole world. What can be done to be protecting cities like Alexandria in Egypt and all over the world?
It's good that you mention Alexandria, because we've done quite some work in the run-up to this COP with the governorate and the city and the national government on this topic. We are launching today here the Atlas of Cities, and part of that is to look at understanding what are the precise risks that the city will face. As you mentioned, sea level rise, urban flooding, heat, drought, these are all the types of impacts that cities will see increasingly. So this is where we work with the city of Alexandria to conduct that type of assessment. That's the first critical step, is to understand what are the actual risks, and then to put in place measures very much targeted at addressing the specific problems that the city will face.
The presence of the Minister of International Cooperation, Dr. Rania Al-Mashot, and the Egyptian officials regarding such an initiative, how do you see the cooperation between an international entity, global entity in terms of the economy and finance like the World Bank, and the Egyptian government, the efforts of the Egyptian government in having better bilateral relations between Egypt and those entities?
Well, I think today the presence of the three ministers was a very strong sign that this is a priority for the government, and that they are also looking to work internationally on this topic, both to learn for Egypt, but also to take what Egypt can do globally as well. So I think this is the start of a very interesting partnership, and at the World Bank we're always looking for ways to identify best practices and models of things that can work elsewhere, and that's why, you know, we're really happy to see this level of support from the Egyptian government.
And finally, you've mentioned the future. What are the expected levels of cooperation between the World Bank and Egypt?
Well, I think we have a strong cooperation. We have a significant country program, and we're always working to develop that. We've recently launched prioritize managing climate risks and opportunities in line with development of the country. So we look forward to implementing those ideas as we discuss our future operations here in Egypt.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Joanna Masic, the Global Lead for Sustainable Cities at the World Bank. Thank you very much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And we will be continuing coverage for the Egyptian television, so stay tuned.